The one point that I really want to hammer home, and Sims and I talked about it a little bit today without the benefit of some words of wisdom from Brett Favre, Hall of Fame quarterback, who played most of his career, but for a season and a half at most before the NFL had its concussion epiphany, and he played 321 straight games. That guy clearly had concussions. He clearly returned to games in which he had suffered a concussion. There was no protocol requiring that someone who was diagnosed with a concussion be held out of action. And Andy Reid, the Chiefs coach himself, mentioned that in the old days, Patrick Mahomes on Sunday, once he was in the concussion protocol, in those old days would have been back in the game at some point before the game ended. That's just the way it was. And Favre's comments to TMZ from Monday, I think very important for everyone to take to heart. Now, look, we all as football fans just want to be entertained. Unless you're a Bills fan, you're hoping that Patrick Mahomes gets cleared to play after suffering that concussion on Sunday. And I've seen different reports and different accounts of whether or not it was a neck thing and his neck was impinged in some way and that caused the wooziness and he didn't really have a concussion. Look, he was diagnosed with a concussion, period. He's in the concussion protocol, period. And he's not getting out until team doctors and, most importantly, the independent neurologists say so. Favre's advice to Mahomes is don't try to fudge things. Don't keep your mouth shut if you have a headache on Friday or Saturday. We've seen cases where quarterbacks have put their hands in the air and said, hey, I'm feeling the effects of a concussion when no one else would have known the difference. If you feel that way, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the sport to say so. And the reality is no competitor is going to be inclined to do that. That would be the ultimate act of true selflessness, not for your team, but for the sport, for yourself. It's one of those weird situations where it's important for you to be selfish, but your short-term selfish nature is I want to play. Your long-term selfish nature is I'm not going to play under these circumstances. And that's the kind of selfish that the sport is trying to promote from a cultural standpoint. It isn't there yet, but that's what the goal is. That's what the hope is. And, I get uncomfortable when I see the report that was published earlier today from ESPN. I think it was an Adam Schefter report that the Chiefs are optimistic he'll be cleared to play. I don't want any pressure. I don't want any expectation. I want the protocol to play itself out. And there will be pressure on the independent neurologist because this is important to the league to have Patrick Mahomes on the field this weekend. And I've been pressing gently for some transparency and some information about who's making the final call. How is that going to work? They'll give you the protocol, but they're not going to give you names. And I understand they don't want individuals to be pressured by anyone, but at some point, someone's got to sign the paper that says cleared or not cleared. And I think it's fair at some point to ask who that is and who's making this decision. And it's a far more important point than we realize because it doesn't happen very often. I can't think of a time that there was a question about a quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, with a concussion, whether or not he was going to get cleared before the next game, a game of this magnitude. That, to me, unless I'm forgetting something, which is entirely possible over the course of the last 12 years, this feels new. And if it's not brand new, it's something that hasn't happened in a long time. So we'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the course of the week. Without further ado, though, let's bring in Myles Simmons, the latest edition of ProFootballTalk.com. Previously covered the Panthers and the Rams, and Myles joins us now. Good afternoon, Myles. How are you?
Doing well, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it's great to have you. Let's start where I was just talking about Patrick Mahomes and this concussion thing. Isn't it? I mean, am I missing something? Is there a time where we've had an issue like this with such a great quarterback with such an impactful game, and we're caught in this situation where we just have to wait and see what the doctors do?
Yeah, I don't recall one. And, as you were just saying that, I was trying to think of one, and I really couldn't. But I think you're right. It is so consequential what this is going to be for Patrick Mahomes because, as you said, this is important for the league that he plays in this game. And so you don't want that, whoever that independent neurologist is, to feel any pressure to clear Patrick Mahomes if he is not ready to play. And I think, based on what Brett Favre was saying, it's not just about it being important for the league. It's about being important for him and his family. His fiance is pregnant. Now, this is something that I think has to go through your mind at some point. Who am I going to be for my child in the future? Who am I going to be for my family? And so if Mahomes is feeling any effects of anything, he should not be out there.
Yeah, and that's where Favre's advice is coming from, because Favre played in that era where there wasn't the sensitivity that there now is. So he's walking around like so many former players who played in that era, Myles, thinking that there's a ticking time bomb in their brains. And imagine waking up with that every day, thinking, is today the day I'm going to start to lose my faculties? That's where his advice is for Patrick Mahomes. And it's hard when you're 24, 25 years old to envision a future when you're 54, 55. But trust me, guys, if you're lucky, it will happen. That's where Brett Favre is coming from, and I think that's where Patrick Mahomes really needs to take his advice to heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, as somebody who's still in their 20s, it's still a little hard for me to envision that kind of thing, what coming up at some point in my life, and hopefully it does. But I think you're absolutely right, Mike. You cannot just be in the moment sometimes when it comes to your brain. This is something that you need to have for the rest of your life if you're going to have a good life and, and keep all of your mental faculties. And obviously, we also want to see Patrick Mahomes play this game for as long as possible. So if that has anything to do with it, like I said before, if he's feeling anything, he needs to not play.
And we're in the information business, so we crave more information, not less. And I'd love to know who's making this decision. But at the same time, I don't want someone having pressure placed upon them by over-the-top Chiefs fans who insist on their quarterback being available. Like, I don't want anyone to have to go into hiding this week. But this is the job. This is the way it works. And there's only so much that you can keep tucked behind the curtain before people start wondering what's going on. And what Brett Favre said during that interview with TMZ is, this is a test for the NFL, and let's see if they get it right. And there won't be a right or wrong. We won't know, because it's not like, Myles, they're going to put Patrick Mahomes on the field and people are going to be saying, wow, he's messed up still a week later. I mean, it's not going to be perceptible from the viewer's standpoint if there is some lingering fogginess or headaches or anything like that. We're not going to notice it. And that's why it's even more important to fully understand where the boxes get checked, who's checking the boxes, who's making sure that the long-term health and safety of Patrick Mahomes is being protected.
Yeah, exactly. And so if people, I think, were to find out who that neurologist is, like you said, there could be some meddlesome Chiefs fans. I probably know a couple who are very interested in seeing whether or not Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to play. But at the same time, it is one of these things where it's bigger than just this game. And as we know, this is a huge game, but it's more about his career. How can his career continue to unfold? And how can he be a good example for guys to maybe say, look, if something's not right, you need to say something. You cannot just continue to go out there and play and risk yourself and your long-term health just for one game. It's just not worth it.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.